Hey, Manna.
Hey, Tucker.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're super excited to be launching our new podcast, The Refound Story. This is our inaugural episode where we get to introduce to the world what you and I have been working on, what we've been passionate about, and the time is now when we wanted to get it out to everybody as soon as possible. So we're super excited.
Yeah.
I think to get it kicked off, what I'd love to do, Manna, is share with everyone right now, because it is our first episode, what exactly is the Refound story? I think that's probably a great place to start. And then I'd love for you to share our mission
Yeah.
so that our listeners get an idea of what they can expect. So
Okay.
let me share a little bit about what it is. So the Refound story is where the untold, overlooked, or even forgotten chapters of your life are reclaimed, redeemed, and refueled. And we want this to be the fuel that gives you that future worth living. It's not just a podcast. I know that word gets used a lot, but we're about conversation. We're about storytelling. We're about bringing real, raw conversations to life. And we like to see it as a compass for those who've potentially lost their way. We like to use this metaphor of a lantern for those that are standing in the dark, but it's really an invitation for those that are ready to rise. It's not about the deep, dark things. It's often celebrating the little light things. But all in all, it's about using your voice and your story to come to life. So we're super excited to bring the Refound story to you. Manna, why don't you talk a little bit about our mission?
Okay. I'd love to. Thanks, Tucker. Our goal for the past 5 years is to help people find again what was lost or what was hidden, what was forgotten, what has been overlooked, whether it's your voice, courage, a sense of purpose, even our joy and our ability to dream. We've been very, very responsible people, and we've been hit hard personally, familially, community wise, regionally, and definitely nationally and globally. So, what was lost has to be found. And that's why it's the Refound story. We want to help people reclaim themselves and their dreams or their purpose or their joy or their courage, even stronger, clearer, and dare we say, even more resonant than before. And what we mean by that is it hits the high notes. It's not just out of tune, but it's on point, it's in tune, and it's timely. And as you said, we will talk about some of the heavier things, but we really want to focus where that brought you to. And so parts of our conversations will be about being very honest. We won't sugarcoat things, we won't whitewash things, and yet we'll still be tender and thoughtful and responsible about some of those ideas or concepts or historical facts. And we do want to invite people into our conversations, and they will be bold. And as I said, they will be tender and maybe um, new, fresh, and yet still practical. Because what's the point of talking unless we can implement things in a very personal and still universal way that it bridges not just our personhood but how we interact with everybody else. So here we believe the story is not the end, it's a seed. And sometimes in the darkness, we think we've been buried when in fact we've just been planted. So this is where you will be refound. And we're really excited about this. You and I have been doing this for 5 years. And the reason I don't know if people understand this, but the reason we've been kind of quiet is because a lot of people's stories have been very personal. And we didn't want to necessarily share that with everyone. And yet there's a way now to do it that is very respectful and honoring of their stories and still share the wins, share the testimonies, share the fruit of what people have been working on. And so that's why we're coming out now with the podcast. We did try before, but it just seemed, well, we'll be really transparent, really cheesy. And we didn't want
It
to
did,
be,
it wasn't right for the time, right?
yeah,
And I think
yeah. It felt
we
for
were
forced.
we were making assumptions, and I think, as we both believe, everything has perfect timing. And this is why we felt the calling to do this now. And it's evolved. And I'm glad actually we
We waited.
abandoned that ship and waited,
Yeah.
because the people we've been working with more recently have been really impactful, and really the people that we've actually connected more and more and more. And I think society is allowed for more acceptance and less judgment
Yes.
around personal stories, regardless of anything chaotic that's going on in the world. It's more widely accepted. And as you said, it's not just about you and I having conversations. We're going to bring in really awesome people, people we've worked with, people we admire, people that are changing the game in this space,
Yes.
and more of a rally cry for movement making rather than just talking about topics. And
Right.
we want to get people excited about being invited into something more. Um,
Right.
I think it's one thing that COVID taught us too, was this idea of being able to step more into passion, more into purpose, more into those things that are really driving us, and realizing that we needed to shed some of that mental weight. I think there was some mental obesity around things that just weren't what we should be focused on. And part of what a big part of this podcast is to allow people to lose and shed that emotional mental weight, but also be kind of rechannel their lives in a way that's more meaningful, and how the two of us can help. And that's why
Yes.
we see ourselves as in that servant leadership space.
Yes.
It's really about you and supporting you to help others. So
Yes. Yes. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I think some of the things that we've gone through personally, and then we work through independently and with each other
mhm.
as friends, as colleagues, as business partners, has really helped us to be more, how can I say this? And I mean this with all humility, it's practical wisdom. So it's
Mhm.
not just pontificating, it's
Yeah,
not just the latest and the greatest model out there, or idea, or course, or hustle, or any of that. It's, where is the strength really in each one of us and in our vulnerability? Where is the gift? And that's why you and I thought our first episode should be reclaiming the chapters we've skipped, because we, as you mentioned, the mental obesity, we've had weights and monkeys and gorillas of all these things that we should be doing,
right.
or ought to be doing, or is the latest uh technique or trend. And we just thought, that's that's not us.
Yeah.
And we got involved in the flow of some of it,
Mhm.
not
Yep.
not so much because we, as you said, the game, not so much that we believed that was our answer, but we had to engage so that we knew where to meet people where they were
Right.
at.
Yeah.
And so many people came to us, well, we should do this, and we should do this, and we should do that. And it wasn't always about that. And that's, I think, where we had such success with our clients. And they just learned to be very authentic in their Refound story. And maybe, Tucker, we could talk about our reclaimed uh,
Yeah.
story, our Refound story. And I'll just start right now, because my
Yeah.
name shows up right now as Mary Joy Manna. And while my birth name is Manna, this is something that I skipped over, something that I want to reclaim back, which is, I've been a great doer. I've been very responsible. I've been uh, a good girl. Being Chinese, you better be a good girl, and you better be the smartest, and you better have the titles, and you better have, all these things. And I understand the root of it is because if we weren't the best, the most excellent, and I say this with great uh, respect for my father. And he used to say, oh, have you heard of so-and-so? Did you know Auntie so-and-so's daughter is now the most world renowned fill in the blank?
Yeah.
And, and, it wasn't, she was great. She was one of the top. It was the world's most renowned. well, isn't renowned already around the world? But no, the most world renowned. So hearing that, I was like, oh, I'm not good enough.
Right.
I can't, I'll never make that. How am I going to compete with not only being the best, but renowned? Oh, no, not renowned, the world's most renowned. And so what I lost in all of that is in this culture of hustle or go get him or, warrior. I am she that roars, Helen Reddy. I understand all of that. I understand the genesis of all of that. And somewhere along the line, our soul got lost. My spirit got lost. And I have a mentor who said to me, Manna, your name will no longer be Manna, which is just immediate daily provision. It will be Mary. Out of the daily toil, out of the wilderness, you will birth something wonderful. And I couldn't resonate with that. I went, oh, that's so nice, Mary, yay. And then I asked, wait, is that Mary, mother of Jesus, or Mary Magdalene? Because they're very different people. And then I resonated more with Mary Magdalene, all the mistakes I've made, all the different things. But long story short, that was sort of the impetus for him to say Mary. And then, but I thought something's missing. And then one day I remembered, I used to be called a Chinese nickname, which meant big laughter, beloved auntie. And it's a very long story, but what was missing was the joy, was the laughter. So I put Mary Joy. And so I want to lead with new, reclaiming something that I have overlooked, reclaiming my spirit and my joy. And I'm still Manna. I'm still who I am. And I'm not trying to fake something, that fake it till you make it. I understand the quantum component of that. And yet there is the integration, I think, of what we want, who we really are with what we've been, and not blaming, accusing, forgetting, condemning the past of who we were, and yet honoring that and stepping into the new, to dream again. What does Mary mean to me? What does joy mean to me? And how do I integrate that newness into who I have been? And without condemning, accusing, and blaming or minimizing all of that. So, yeah, I'll start. So I started. Now you go.
Okay, well, we'll have your radio name be MJM.
Okay.
DJ MJM. Well, for me, we talked about these chapters that we've skipped, and I think for me, what that represents often is shame, guilt, maybe a little bit of denial, but a lot of fear.
Yes.
And so that's what for me, the chapters represent. And for me, if 10 years ago, you definitely wouldn't recognize me. And I was in a representing those individuals that have probably focused on people pleasing, focused on living the expectations of others, comparing, what I call comparanoia of constantly looking at everybody else. I should be this, I should be doing that. You look at the families that we were connected to because of the kids, and it was the lawyers that are defending the top, and the doctors that have risen to chief, and there's just a lot of that pressure. And for me, I had fallen into complacency. I'd fallen into what was comfortable, what was known, what was safe, was kind of where I settled, and it was my norm. And after a while, between some betrayal at work and just completely lacking any purpose or a joy anymore, talk about joy.
Yeah.
It led me down a path of a mental war within myself. I mean, a mental war of not even wanting to sit in my own skin. And I just recall when I was younger being in this space of constant anxiety. But in the 70s and 80s, there was no such thing as diagnosed anxiety in that sense. It was, you worry too much, calm down. It was this and that. You get that from your grandfather, all of those kinds of things. But I'm like, gosh, if this is the way I'm going to live my life, it's going to be really challenging. So I kind of let go of it and accepted it and white knuckled it, and realizing by the time I hit 40, 10 years ago, the proverbial midlife crisis, which I'm going to get back to in just a second, was I just found myself in a space of feeling like an utter failure to my family, a wife, two beautiful kids, the house. I mean, everything on paper was perfect, but I was miserable. I was empty. I was fearful that I was never going to be able to provide long term for my family, that I would be that kind of guy that never made it. And that created immense fear, immense guilt, immense shame. Went into the whole self-medicating mode. How do I escape this? And with undiagnosed general anxiety disorder, it really, really came to a pretty dark place. And at that point, I remember looking in the mirror and being like, the only thing I have to change is everything. And I was like, that was my defining moment. I was like, okay, it's no longer a crisis, it's an awakening. So I decided to coin that whole part of my 40th birthday as my midlife awakening, not my crisis, and determining and thinking that my comeback is going to be my greatest give back. And that's my mantra that I've been using, is that whole comeback story, and realizing that why not share these stories? And the moment you start talking about it, well, oh, you too, and all of these kinds of things, especially in men, um, that denial and that, why would you ever bring that into the workplace, or why would you ever talk about that, and all that kind of stuff. So I want to also bring that perspective into, being that 50-plus-year-old father, in that space of what it means to be a man these days, and thinking about
Yes.
those kinds of topics, and being that voice of permission in that sense. So for me, that's what the chapters that skipped. What's great about skipping chapters is that you can go back and reread them
Yes.
and be like, oh, I missed that. It's like that. Wait a minute, you hear people watch a movie and it's like, did you get all the Easter eggs? Did you see all those? People start to dissect it and you're like, I missed that. And going back and being like, now I get it. And I can do that now. I can go back and look at those chapters and say, I get it. That's what this was teaching me. And we're not taught that in school. We don't have that emotional intelligence curriculum that we can help build. And that's where it's nice to break that cycle and be able to look at my own kids and say, this is where I went wrong. Now you're going to be that much more resilient when you enter the real world outside of college. And
Yeah.
so that's how I look at those chapters. And I think that's why we're having this podcast, when we call it Refound, is to be able to go back and reread, redefine, reframe, reclaim all of those re's, to be able to finally get to where we want to be going. It's never about a destination per se, but why are we running from something? But it's really about that, finding that sense of, let's just call it freedom.
Yes.
So I'm excited that that's where we get to take this podcast.
Yes, me too. And we have quite a few episodes coming up that's going to be extremely exciting and practical. As we said, this is our introductory episode, so that people know what this is
Yeah.
about.
We even talked about, we're going to call our episodes chapters. Right?
Yes,
Chapters.
exactly.
And we're going to invite people to share their chapter.
Yeah.
It's a collective book that we're all authoring. And this is an opportunity for people to be able to share those stories. And we'll have, all sorts of people from all varying aspects of life stages, and triumphs and tragedies, and but all doing amazing work that people can then feel connected to, and build that trust, and find a way to refine themselves. And that's
Yes.
been
Yeah.
a passion of ours. And we get to finally, reveal, right? We're revealing the Refound, and
Yes.
being able to bring that to everyone. So,
Right.
um,
And it's not just about hearing the stories, it's about the treasures in between each one. And as they're told, we can link them together. And so it's not quite a bit breadcrumb path, although that's could be seen as that way, but a thread, or also these precious nuggets that have been dropped along the way. And you talked about emotional intelligence, where there's also spiritual intelligence. If we didn't have EI or SI, emotional intelligence or spiritual intelligence, to do this crazy wild adventure called life, it would be horribly depressing and, as you said, beyond challenging, because we'd have nothing to reference. Why is this happening? We'll all always have these why, and be stuck in this crazy victim mindset, as opposed to seeing these beautiful opportunities, these times of darkness, these times of being in the storm, these times of wilderness experiences, these times of loneliness, as incredible preparatory points in our lives for our character. You said something very early in the podcast of this mental obesity. We have just put on this weight without knowing our silent agreement with comfort. And it's, oh, this will make me comfortable. This will make me successful. This will make me even more comfortable. And this will make me have a purpose. And this comparison trap with this gorilla, and gorillas are great, but they belong in certain places, not necessarily on our backs. So the breakthroughs, the patterns, the lessons, the awakening, the redemption will be very powerful for our readers, our listeners, our clients, our viewers, to see their story and somebody else's story, and how they too can be refound, because it can either be a prison or a passport. And it just depends on how we hold it. And it's not just about reframing. It's not just about, it's not just a mental exercise. There are nuggets here. There are treasures here that we've been able to excavate and polish in such a way that when people get it, they will be literally transformed. And so that's what we're excited about. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, we're excited to be sharing more chapters with you. Please visit Voices That Unite is the organization that
.com.
Mary Joy Manna and I founded a few years back. So you can go to voicesthatunite.com. If you want to go specifically to the podcast, just /podcast. And there, feel free to listen through YouTube, but also we'll have a form there where you can fill out if there are certain topics, if there are stories that you want to share, or provide some feedback, or, again, we're all about bringing the stories to life, not just ours. That's why we shared ours at the very beginning, but we want to hear yours. We want to bring people in and have that dialogue and those raw conversations. So welcome to the Refound Story podcast. Please visit us online, and we look forward to seeing you in the next chapter.
Yes. Thank you for being with us. And if you want to find out more about what we do, like Tucker said, and who we are, our about is on that website as well. So thank you. And
all right. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.